hopefully. What time of day is it? Evening. This is afternoon for you. Good evening / afternoon, everyone. Bad-tempered Badger here, and I have with me today, you. Who are you?
I don't know. That's why I came here. I thought you would tell me.
I've literally forgotten that discussion we just had about pronunciation, so I'm gonna go with Marie.
If you can say it as absurdly as possible, I would be very happy.
All right, let's go with D elephant.
You pronounce the P, the H is silent, so it's Delapahant.
Pahant. All right.
Yeah.
So de le Pahant.
Yeah. Whatever you said, that's what it was. Yep.
Right. How do you normally say it? So we can go with that.
Yeah. Well, if other people want to call me Marie Delafont, that'd be okay.
That's what you said. Yep.
Yeah.
I was there like, oh, it's gone. It's gone from my brain.
Totally okay.
Oh, we've got Dave and Critical Cripple in the chat. This is amazing.
Oh.
It must be because of the ball incident. He's split into two now.
Not the ball incident.
Right, so I thought we'd start off with, who are you and what do you do?
Well, my name, now I want to say my name that way, Marie Delapahant. Well, my name is Marie Delafont, and I'm a secular activist.
Mm-hmm.
I host a podcast called Everyone's Autonomous, where I talk to people who have left their faith, and we talk about how then to kind of rebuild our lives afterwards and how to participate in the world now that it is our home and not just a spiritual platform to perform a play before we go to Jesus. And so I host that podcast. I also am involved in secular work, talking on platforms like this. Thank you for inviting me to talk about secularism, atheism, religious trauma, autonomy, social justice. And so I also work with Dave Warnock, which some people in the community know about him. I manage his I suppose it's a speaking tour. He's talking about dying as an atheist and a former pastor. I also, what else do I do? I'm also a coach for a variety of themes. Usually the ones that people are most interested in is that I coach people who are exploring ethical non-monogamy. And I do humanist photography work. I volunteer at social justice events here and provide images to our local social justice organizers. I think I do more stuff, but that's probably the gist of it.
Well, there's certainly a lot of topics there.
Yeah.
Right, where should we start? What was the first one? You mentioned...
I don't know.
You mentioned the old secular activism. So how does that normally manifest itself with you? What do you do on the secular front?
On the secular front, I suppose I just like to talk about what it's like to be a secular individual, specifically an individual who came out of a religious upbringing, and to discuss how, whether you were brought up in that or whether you were impacted by it in culture, because we can't escape it in culture, I really value helping people unpack those narratives and messages and unpack the kinds of values that have been socialized into us that maybe as secular folks with our secular morals don't necessarily subscribe to, because we don't need to, because those morals are based in religious beliefs. And so I just like to kind of unpack what's been given to us by culture. And I think that that's kind of a secular sociological pursuit. And so I enjoy having those kinds of conversations with people.
Yeah, so sort of looking at things from that have been sort of set up in people's minds from a religious perspective that might not be helpful.
Right.
All right. Fascinating.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit more. You mentioned you do a bit of photography. Tell me a bit about that.
I do. Also, I'm like so distracted. I'm looking at the comments over here. They're on my other screen. Yes, I am a photographer too. Dave's bouncy ball. You got some weird ass guests and names. Squeezes Dave's burst ball. What are they doing with balls over there in the comments?
Okay.
Oh my god.
So there was an incident with Dave's ball a while ago, and apparently almost everyone has renamed themselves.
Oh my god. That's amazing. Oh my god, you guys are funny. Okay, sorry. Okay, what did you ask me? I got
Photography.
distracted by balls.
How'll that go?
Oh, so photography. Yes. So I've been a photographer for about 10 years. And lately I've gotten into photographing local social justice events for Black Lives Matter. Additionally, there's Native Lives Matter. I just went to a protest. I don't know if it was really a protest, but they called it a victory dance it was hosted by Rock the Tribal Vote, which is a Native group. And they marched to downtown Minneapolis to celebrate the removal of the Washington football team's name and demanding for the removal of other Native names as mascots for sports teams. So I was able to march along with them and take pictures of their event. And then at the end of the night, I go home and go through all the pictures and upload them to Google Drive and email the organizer and send it all their way so that they can use it for promotion and that kind of thing. So as a white person, I've been trying to think of ways to support movements like this for equality. And as a photographer, that's something that I can do. I can volunteer. I can provide them with media so that they can use the media to amplify their own voices instead of me, stealing their voice or using my lens on top of their voice. So that's something that I've been really enjoying doing this summer. I don't know. Enjoying is a weird verb for that, but it's like enjoy / honor. Like I'm honored by
Something
being
you feel
able to do
positive
that.
about.
I do, and not that it matters how I feel about it, but it seems like that it's something that they appreciate, and I learn a ton by attending these events and unpacked a lot about my own socialization as a white person in America. So yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity for myself, and I'm really really grateful for being able to do it.
Interesting. So it's sort of you go along, do the photography, and you send it to the organisers and various connected people to use for whatever purpose they deem appropriate.
Exactly. Yep.
I see. What sort of events lately has it been?
Well, yep.
I know you just said a load, but my brain is not working.
No, that's okay. That's totally okay. Oh my God, that's so okay. But yeah, I went to the We Are Not Your Mascot protest or rally or march. That was yesterday, and then I was gone. I was out of town for 5 days. I went to Nashville to see Dave Warnock. But before that, God, I mean, what? I went to one about the corrections department.
Yeah.
And how the current state of things in prisons is not.
It's not very helpful.
What's the word?
Yeah.
It's not right. It is not right. People are being exposed to COVID. Are not getting the treatment, the human treatment that they need, and so a group of folks organized a protest outside of the office of the Department of Corrections in St. Paul, and demanded that those with low be released from prison during this time, and or that they be moved to like an open air space or something, because people are dying and getting ill, and they're hiding their illnesses because if they get ill, then they're put into solitary, which is.
Yeah.
Like so nothing about this is good, and so they went to the offices to protest it, and no one was there. I don't know if they expected them to be there, but no one was there, and so then they drove in a caravan down to the president. I don't know if he's a president or a CEO or whatever, to his house.
Okay.
That was the first time I've been in a protest outside of someone's home. That was I felt nervous there. They like literally went up to the dude's house, like to his front door. And like,
Is this the chap in charge of the local prison system? Is that?
I believe so. His name is Paul Schnell, here in
Okay.
Minnesota. So it was interesting, and always learning a lot, always finding myself scared, but then finding myself thinking, you know what, this is the right thing to do. There's protests have caused a lot of change, a lot of positive change already just in the last, how long has it been now? I mean, a month and a half that I've been watching since George Floyd died, but protests have been happening for years.
And well, for decades they've been sort of picking up and losing momentum in various different directions. It's a fascinating history to look into, as all various protests for people's rights.
Yeah.
And the prison one is particularly interesting, I think, because there's so many people who shouldn't really be in there anyway.
Oh my God, dude! Like I started smoking marijuana, like, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, and I'm 38, and so that's pretty late in life to be starting to experiment with drugs like that. But before that, I was raised. I don't know if you guys have this program called Dare. I was raised in Dare. It's like a dare to say no to drugs, and
Oh yeah.
and so I was
I know
taught all
the
this stuff
theme,
about
yeah.
drugs. Yeah, because I grew up in the war against drugs era, and that's what I learned about drugs. And so since I started doing cannabis just a few years ago, and I'm like, oh, this isn't bad. This is pretty great. And now it's very mainstream, and yet there are still people incarcerated for that very thing.
Yeah, that seems a bit of a stitch up, that one.
Yeah. So, and I know that when states legalize cannabis, they usually have some kind of deal where, as part of the legalization, they get rid of, I don't know the correct terminology for that stuff, but they usually free the people who were incarcerated because of drug charges, because it is fucking ridiculous. Drugs are great.
That's the thing. There's some that will cause you problems over time, and there's some that'll cause you problems immediately.
Yes.
But the way they've been doing the in quotes war on them,
yes,
it doesn't really help.
No, because I think there's a interesting nuance to it that, on one side, what I'm learning is that drugs are beautiful and they're wonderful and they can change you and give you the best therapy of your life. I've never made nearly as much progress through the work I've done with cannabis as I have done with an in-person talk therapy. And I don't prescribe that to anyone. I'm just saying personally, like, it's just blown my mind and helped me to understand my place in the world. And so it's been incredibly helpful for me. And so there's that part of it where drug use can be very positive. And then, of course, there's the other end of things of drug abuse, which is a legit thing. It's absolutely a legit thing. And it doesn't mean that the drug is bad. Well, I don't know. I'm not educated enough in this. I just think that there's just a lot of nuance to be explored there. And drugs are just getting a bad name when really they can be incredibly powerful and something wonderful to experience now and then.
Yeah, so all these things have potentially positive and negative effects.
Correct, yeah.
But if just nobody uses them ever, you never figure out what the positive effects are.
Yeah.
And whether those can be beneficial to people.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. Like, I was not really terribly surprised when I started doing cannabis, and I started thinking, oh, you mean conservative people do this drug? Because now that makes sense, because it expands your mind, and every time I do it, my empathy is just enhanced and enhanced and enhanced. So much so that, that thing that you usually say when you're high, like, I feel one with the world, but like it's just this profound depth of empathy to the world and being part of it.
I get you. I had a very odd conversation with a friend of mine when I was how can I put it? I'd been puffing the magic dragon, as it were, and he hadn't. And I was there talking to him, just talking about like the nature of consciousness, and he's there going, look, mate, would you shut up? Because I'm not on the same like plane as you right now.
Yeah.
So I've got no
That's
idea what you're talking about.
that's usually what I end up talking about when I'm high too. Like
Yeah.
that's the first thing I think about, like consciousness, because you realize how different it feels when you're high. That you're like, oh shit, this is all arbitrary, and this is just an experience of synapses and electricity, and like that's all this is. Like, it's nothing spiritual in my view. It's not inherently spiritual. It's just the experience of a biological being that we all have in common.
It's a very interesting topic that I think needs to be looked into a lot more.
Well, I guess we should get high and learn some more about it.
All right, now I have a question for you from the chat,
Yeah.
which is related to the protests that you've been photographing.
Yeah,
Photographing.
sure.
That's the one.
That flows perfectly.
Photographing. So,
Photographying.
Rainbug asks, did Marie witness any first-hand wanton violence by law enforcement while attending any city protest?
Did I witness any violence from the authorities on protesters? I did not see any violent behavior. That partially has to do with the fact that I leave after curfew, that kind of thing, like happens after curfew. But that's not entirely true either. That happens in broad fucking daylight. We've all seen the news. But no, I've not seen personally physical aggression from the authorities to protesters, but I have seen them consistently aggravate, escalate, agitate, make things worse, antagonize. Have definitely seen that consistently.
What sort of form has that taken? What have they been up to?
Well, for example, I think it was probably about a month ago when we had the National Guard here in Minneapolis as a response to the more violent manifestations of rioting. And I went to a protest outside of the Hennepin County medical, is it medical commissioner? The medical...
I'm a lot further away from it than you are.
Fair enough. Okay, so I could just make shit up and no one would know. But like, it's basically the department that was in charge of reviewing, looking at Mr. Floyd's body and determining what his cause of death was. And so there was a protest outside of that office by medical professionals.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was there, and it was all medical professionals, maybe a handful of photographers, downtown Minneapolis, and the medical department office was completely surrounded, barricaded, with fences and concrete blocks all the way around, and then had National Guard patrolling the perimeter inside the fence as well as on top of the roof. So they're very present. They're aware that a lot of anger is being aimed that way. But anyway, so that was the protest was there. And so there was the National Guard tried to start a conversation with this individual who wasn't a medical professional. He was just in attendance, and he had a sign that was promoting the book New Jim Crow. And he was a black man, and the National Guard that was talking to him was a white man. And I saw it out of the corner of my eye. I was maybe like a half a block away that they were starting to get into it. And I was like, okay, going to go insert, going to go witness, going to be there. And so I walked over to see what was going on. And so it turned out that the National Guard had gotten this guy's attention, even though he's not an organizer. He had nothing to do with this. And he just started telling him oh, everyone needs to get out of the street, in case ambulances come through and whatever. And the dude's like, I'm not in charge of this. You guys need to be doing this stuff. You guys need to be protecting the protesters. This isn't on us. And so they got into this thing, and the National Guard's like, no. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And the National Guard's like, oh, we just need you guys to get out of the street. I'm like, well, why are you talking to my friend here he's not an organizer. Like, why are you agitating him? Why are you gaslighting him and telling him to clear the streets when he's not even an organizer and getting him all pissed off? He's like, well, I just don't want to interrupt the organizers. I'm like, if you think we're about to be hit by an ambulance, maybe do this thing, like wave us over and let's talk about this. And so I was like, okay, dude, do you want me to go talk to an organizer? He's like, no, I don't want to interrupt them. I'm like, dude, if it's so important to you that you are agitating this gentleman over here who has nothing to do with it, it seems pretty important. I'm going to go talk to him, okay? And the guard's like, okay. And so I go and I talk to the organizer. I'm like, hey, just so you know, they want you to stay out of the streets. They're worried about you guys being hit by ambulances. She's like, okay. And I turn back to the National Guard. I'm like, got it.
So would you say that it's kind of just trying to set up altercations that will make the protesters look that will frame the protests in a negative light?
I'm not sure. I'm willing to talk about all this stuff, but I always want to preface it with being very new to all of this and not being incredibly educated on it. Mm-hmm. But I can respond and say that I think some of it's intentional, and some of it has to do with training. Mm-hmm. That they're taught to see, good, bad, peaceful, agitator. Mm-hmm. So I think it's not. I don't know if I'm trying to say that they see the protesters as the enemies, but they definitely see them with suspicion, and so they treat them with like this base premise of like suspicion, and I think that feeds into them engaging in discussions without good faith, without good intentions.
Okay.
I'm speaking out of my ass here, so I hope people will take that with a grain of salt.
All I've asked for is your opinion on it. I'm not expecting you to present me with the absolute objective truth on the matter.
Sure, yeah. I just try to be cautious about what I say as a white person. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I get what you're saying. I had another question. What was it? Something about...
Just a lot of balls in the comments.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely filled to the brim with balls in the comments right now.
Balls.
All right, that was what I was going to ask you. So, you mentioned part of everyone's autonomous thing. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Sure. So, I guess the fun way to tell the story is that about 4 years ago, I was a wreck. I was just beginning to start to deal with the trauma that I had experienced in religion, which produced a very anxious person, which I still am, very much so, an anxious person. But I was afraid of everything, afraid of fear. And so by 2016, I was like, this shit needs to stop. Like, I need to deal with this shit. And so in 2016, I started deliberately looking for things that terrified me and then made a beeline straight for them, because I was tired of being led by fear, which I believe is a hangover from religion and partially has to do with culture teaching us not to really trust ourselves and to be afraid of making mistakes, and of being afraid of being wrong and looking like an idiot. And so in 2016, I spent pretty much the whole year, finding things that scared me and doing them. One of those things was I came across, I don't know if you guys have Groupon or if you've heard of Groupon, but it's this kind of cool discount way to get you to do stuff you wouldn't do otherwise because it's really cheap and you can find it online.
I know this sort of thing, yeah.
Yeah. So there was like this trapeze company. They have this huge building in Minneapolis, and you can sign up for like an intro class to trapeze, and for like $40 or $60 or something, and you go and they teach you how to hang from a trapeze, and then you climb up and you swing. I think you can fit in maybe like 2 or 3 swings in the session. So I did that, and that was fucking terrifying, and that's a story in and of itself. But the experience itself has become an ongoing metaphor for my interest in engaging my fears, of climbing that ladder and jumping and letting go, even when I was terrified. Still do it. You don't have to conquer your fear, just don't let it guide you. And so I call that trapezing. Coming to terms with your fears. And so I was doing trapezing, going to like a Krav Maga class, because that sounded horrible. I went to a silks class where they hang silks from the ceiling, and a bunch of white ladies usually hang from there. And so I did that thing, and quite a number of other things. And then I was like, you know what? I have a lot of issues around sexual oppression because of the purity culture that I was raised in Christianity, and I really want to fucking deal with that. And so I found a podcast called Secular Sexuality, which was hosted by Dr. Daryl Ray at the time, who's now the president of Recovering from Religion. And I invited myself onto his podcast. And that was my first public speaking, as it were, about my trauma, as far as I can recall. And it was terrifying, but I trapezed the hell out of it. And it was addictive. And I think and that leads me to just kind of like why I'm doing what I'm doing, why I'm in podcasting, because it's empowering to me to tell my story and to give permission to other people to talk about their trauma and to find healing in their own way, and to know that you're normal and that you're human and it's okay. And so I found a podcast called Everyone's Agnostic, and that was a podcast that talked about people leaving religion, and it was incredibly validating to hear other people's experiences of leaving religion, because each person leaves it differently. Each person can talk about it differently. Each person can talk about different elements of it to different extents. Some parts of us are more paralyzed than others. And so when we hear each other's stories, I can hear something that only hurt inside me. I can hear someone else articulate it. And that is it's a gift of words, that they gave me those words that I needed to express what I was feeling but couldn't say. And I found so much healing from that podcast, and I invited myself onto it because trapeze, why not? Let's talk about this. And I was invited on twice, or rather I invited myself on. As you know now, I go out and invite myself onto platforms. Cripple Dave.
I have seen this happen.
Yes, you have witnessed this. I have. It's not that I don't have shame, but I figure if someone wants me on, they'll have me on, and if they don't, they don't, and good enough.
You don't get anywhere if you don't ask, do you?
No, exactly. I don't take it personally. I've had people say no. That's fine. It's their platform. And so then Everyone's Agnostic lost its co-host, Bob Pondillo. Well, he didn't die. He just moved. But and I was like, I would love to do this. And so I became the co-host about a year and a half ago, and I was the co-host for a year of Everyone's Agnostic. And Cass was my co-host, and both of us have very large personalities in certain ways. And so it was an interesting blend for that year. But then eventually he decided he wanted to kind of be done. And I decided I was not done. And so that's when I started my podcast, Everyone's Autonomous. And autonomy is one of my big points for everything that I talk about. The autonomy of the self and the autonomy of the collective. And advocating for the autonomy of the collective if they're having their autonomy stripped away from them systemically at the government level, in whatever country, for whatever race or whatever, that if we're so excited about our own autonomy, we have to fight for the autonomy of other people. Otherwise, if other people don't have autonomy, we don't have autonomy. Like, this really needs to be a global thing. And so that's what led me into doing the podcast that I'm doing. It is another podcast that talks about deconversion. There's quite a few of those out there. Like Steve Hilliker has one called Voices of Deconversion. Ryan Bell has one called Life After God. Chuck and Brady have the life after. I think that mine is slightly unique in that I'm like, yeah, let's talk about our deconversion for the first half. And then for the second half, let's talk about how is shit going now? Like what are we dealing with day to day now that we've left religion, we have a whole life ahead of ourselves. What kind of shit are we still holding on to that we need to unpack, and how are we assimilating back into the earth, because we are part of the earth, and that's something that former religious people struggle to kind of ground back into the biology of what you are, that you are part of the primate family, that you I don't know why we wear clothes. Like, I sometimes feel like wearing clothes denies the fact that we're animals, and I think that that's part of the trick of reminding yourself that you are part of the animal kingdom. And that can be an incredibly healing thing for people who were raised in that kind of a background to go through. So those are the kinds of things that I like to focus on my podcast, and more specifically recently, very heavy discussions around social justice and that sort of thing.
So on that last thing you wrote about, that would be kind of the my tongue's decided it wants to escape my face. So
odd.
So that would be the kind of the separation between humans being a separate thing from animals, as opposed to just being another form of animal.
Right.
It's just with intelligence and problem solving being a higher thing, as opposed to speed or something like that, like with other animals.
Yeah. And I think it can be really healing for all of us, because I think every human I talk to struggles with self-esteem, and I'm not exempt from that, but like, I'm not good enough in all these different ways, and we all have our different things that we don't feel good enough about. And I've always wondered why secular people feed into that, and it's something to explore. Like, I'm not positing any, theory here, but it's something I've always kind of never really understood about why secular folks are getting caught up in that narrative of, am I good enough? Because if there is no God, and we're pretty sure there's probably not, at least we haven't been proven, nothing's been proven to us, then why do we subscribe to narratives of this black and whiteness, of this good versus bad, especially when it comes to being an animal? If we're an animal, is it relevant to talk about us in terms of being good and bad? Or does it make more sense to talk about behaviors and outcomes, and whether that's I don't know. I mean, even the just does not exist. How to describe humanity?
You got a bit of lag for a second. Then can you go back about 2 lines?
Oh, did it lag?
Yeah, we got as far as even. I think you were talking about whether it's beneficial or not.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you for letting me know. My internet is sometimes really shitty.
Yeah, I've got the same problem on my end.
Yeah, it's just like that ever since COVID started. But just, I don't remember what I did say, but just that I don't understand why we're still fixated on these narratives of being good versus bad when we're just animals. Like, I fully accept my 2 cats exactly as they are. Are they good? No, they're just cats, and sometimes they knock things over, and sometimes they cuddle me when I'm crying. Like, am I going to make a list of their performance in this world and say that they're good or they're bad, or am I just going to say they're a cat? And that, why can't we say that about ourselves? I'm just human. I don't need to be good enough. I don't need to be called bad. I am post qualification. And I find that perspective to be very, very healing for me, because I do struggle with that kind of, those narratives a lot about, like, well, you're not this enough, you're not that enough. And I just don't understand why those things are even out there at all if there's no God and there's none of that. So logically, left brain, I'm burning it. It's on fire. I don't need it. right brain, it's been socialized, it's visceral, I feel it, I've got the trauma, so that's harder to get rid of. And so it's just daily. It's my programming against those in values.
Right. Oh, I think my internet's having a laugh now. But yeah,
no.
I think I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you something. Now, what was it? This is the thing.
It's pronounced Delafont. How many times are we going to go through this?
No, when I'm doing these chats, I'll sit here and the person will be talking, and I'll be there going, yeah, I see what you're saying. Or if I don't, I'll be sort of asking questions, trying to get into their headspace and their frame of mind.
Yeah.
And then it comes to the end of it, and then they're looking at me like, where are we going now? And I'm there going, I was so absorbed in what you were saying, I've got no idea where we're going now.
No, that's, you know what? And that's super indicative of you being an excellent listener. Like, you're so fixed on absorbing what it is I'm putting down that you weren't actively, like, trying to build, like, the next flow of the conversation. So, like, I don't know. I think that's not a bad thing. Because fuck bad, right? You know?
Well, it's just how I am. I'm trying
That's
to
right.
understand the person I'm talking to, so
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily planning where I'm about to go next. Let's see.
You're fun.
Well, that was one thing I was going to bring up. Actually, have you been on Neil's show?
Neil, 604?
Yeah, that's
I
the
feel
chat.
like I have. Yes, I was, because there was a long after party after
A
that.
long one, eh?
Yeah.
They can stretch a little bit, the after shows.
They do. They do.
I've been in a couple of them. They're good fun though.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, I'm debating whether I should try and do like an after chat for this, but I do have to do a thing in a bit afterwards. So we'll see,
Okay.
see how we do.
Yeah, up to you.
Would you be happy to have a chat with the peoples?
Yeah, I would think so, yeah.
All
We
right.
got 12 viewers. Yeah, you nerds want to hang out with us, right? Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I'll try and do one of them doodly doos afterwards. All right. What else could I ask you about? Let's talk about something
most
fun.
people are very interested in me being ethically non-monogamous. Do you want me to
Oh,
talk about that?
Let's go there.
Okay.
let's go to that thing.
Okay. Oh my god, I love it. Yeah. I've been ethically non-monogamous for 3 years, 3.5 years. And it was nothing that I planned on doing. Like, it wasn't like I was born and I was like, oh my god, how can you pick just one? Like, this is just in my blood that I need to have multiple people. Because I've heard some people talk about that. Like, they were just born that way. They were just biologically just like didn't like monogamy. That was never the case for me. But I was raised in purity culture, like I mentioned earlier. And so it was this very narrow way of looking at sexuality, of who you can have sex with, when, how, that kind of thing. So first of all, it has to be heterosexual. It has to be within the confines of marriage. You have to be married for the rest of your life. This is what your marriage has to look like. This is when divorce can happen. Never. It was very, very narrow, and I loved it, because it gave me an excuse to not have to figure out how to talk to boys, because I had crushes. I was like a little, I don't know if y'all have seen Bob's Burgers, but I was basically a Tina, but like without her confidence. Bit. Yeah, she's very, sexual. She's a sexual character, and she has no shame about it, and she just loves all the boys. And that was basically me, but with shame. So
interesting.
Yeah. And so I wouldn't talk to any of the boys. And so when purity culture came around, I was like, sweet. You mean God is going to hook me up and I don't have to work on any of my interpersonal insecurities? Excellent. Okay. And so I just skipped all that altogether and just waited for God to tell me who to date, which was incredibly odd and strange. Oh, yeah. And then I was a missionary in Mexico for 2 years. I don't think I mentioned that. Converting Catholics to Protestantism, because that's essential somehow. But anyway, I got married when I left missions in 2003. I got married to the first person I had sex with, the first person I dated after leaving missions. He wasn't even Christian, so that was pretty rebellious of me.
Oh, steady on.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. It's like, it's fine. Whatever.
Quick question for the chat. Have I fixed my microphone issue?
Oh, it sounds better.
Just tell me if I'm coming out of both sides now, and carry on with the thing.
Yeah, so they were saying you were only coming out of the left speaker.
Yeah, I figured out why it is.
Oh, good. Yeah, it sounds better over here. So I was married to that guy for 5 years, and that was not fun. And then I got married to this other dude 10 years ago, and it was fine for a little while, but then I got comfortable and I felt safe finally in a relationship, and I realized how much like fucked up like sexual bullshit I was still carrying from religion and from culture. There's a lot of internalized misogyny that those who are identified as women deal with, and that can really fuck you up. So I kind of got to this point where it was like, well, either I can try to figure this out with you for the rest of my life, or since we're atheists now, there are ethical options that we can pursue. And so that's when I started looking into ethical non-monogamy. It was my idea. Everyone always thinks it's the man idea, my idea. And I did it because I wanted to heal myself. I wanted to understand myself better. I wanted to unpack a lot of the shame that I felt, a lot of the messaging that I felt. And so that's why I did it. And it's paid off in dividends. I've learned so much more about myself. It's developed my self-esteem in ways I never would have anticipated. It's not for everyone. It requires a lot of emotional intelligence, a lot of communication, a lot of emotional regulation, proactive communication and stuff. And so if that's something that you're not good at and you don't want to do, I would discourage you from trying ethical non-monogamy. But for those who are interested and have the skill set for it, or are interested in understanding the skill set for it, it can be very rewarding to unpack the narratives of jealousy and possessiveness that culture has socialized us with.
What would you say are the most important considerations for being ethically non-monogamous?
The most important considerations. I mean, I think they're kind of like what I mentioned. Like you're going to need to focus on the ethical part of it more than your emotions. And emotions can run incredibly high when you're living a life that nothing in society has prepared you for. And so you're going to be constantly unpacking things that have been ingrained in you. And so a commitment to that work, instead of just letting your ego just throw you all around the room with all these emotions that you're feeling, that's going to need to be the priority. The priority really needs to be the ethical part of it. The self-reflection, self-honesty part of it has to be the priority. If you go into it thinking, I'm going to have so much sex, like you might for a while, but it's going to end in flames eventually, because it requires, I'm using a lot of generalizations, but it does require a lot of emotional intelligence, which we are not typically raised with.
Would you say communication is very important?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's why I enjoy offering coaching as I do for ethical non-monogamy, because communication is so essential, and it's a very what's the word I want to use? The experience itself creates a hotbed for conflict and for high emotions and insecurity that we've carried our entire lives. And now it's upsetting. Like if you're in a coupled relationship and you're opening it up, doing this is going to unsettle that.
Hmm.
And that's scary, especially if you've been with that person for a long time and you kind of see yourself as stable with them.
Yeah.
This can upset that sense of it. So communicating in a way that um, reflects that you own your emotional experiences and you own your reactions, that's an incredibly difficult skill set to have, as well as the skill set of when you're have their reactions to your behaviors, being able to cut off any kind of codependent bullshit that you have going on and allowing them to react, allowing them to feel hurt. Because if you know that you did the ethical thing, you know that you are behaving in a way that is appropriate, and they are having a reaction to that because of baggage that they have, it's an important skill set to emotionally kind of cordon yourself off from that. Like, you can still be present with your partner and help them walk through things, but not to emotionally take that on and to own that. And so there's a lot of work involved in that, a lot of emotional. People go to my YouTube channel. I think there's a webinar of non-monogamy 101 that talks about jealousy and talks about the emotional intelligence and the communication pieces that are absolutely essential for this. And I'll just say, like, the skills that people are learning in ethical non-monogamy are shit that we should have for monogamy too. We just haven't had to have them as much because when you're monogamous, there's an amount of a sense of security there that kind of stifles. It can suppress that kind of that kind of insecurity that we're feeling underneath all of it. And because in monogamy there's certain things that are presumed, that you just do this, and so usually there's not discussions about how is this relationship going to be, what are we going to do with this relationship. It's usually like, it's just presumed, like, this is the step, this is the next step, this is the part where we get a checking account, this is the part where we move in, this is the part where we get a dog, this is the part where we meet our parents, this is the part where, and so everything is assumed. And so I think it's a fantastic skill to have for monogamous folks and ethically non-monogamous folks to be able to have those kinds of discussions with their partners, where they kind of emotionally manage what they're saying and what they own or don't own from their partner.
No, I think I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because society kind of has this framework for relationships.
Yes.
Which works for some, but it doesn't fit for everyone.
Right.
You just kind of, like, okay, this my personal experiences with the relationships are, a lot of times previously they've been disasters because I've been trying to stick to this kind of societal framework that does not fit me at all, and it often doesn't fit whoever I'm trying to have a relationship with either.
Yeah.
It fits for a lot of people, and elements of it fit more for some and less for others, but I think I've personally found communication is important, and talking about actually what do we want out of this relationship.
Yeah. And that can be difficult because we have a lot of cultural messaging around those relationships, and it's something called escalator. If people want to look it up, there's a book about it called Escalator Relationships.
You're supposed to have 2.3 children, a dog, and a white picket fence.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, we're fed that. We're fed that by example. A lot of us are seeing that in all the relationships in our family, and our friends are very much an escalator relationship. We're fed that in media. People are always, that's the climax of most movies, right? Like kissing and then getting married, and that's the Disney stuff. And then whenever there's like a love interest, like a love triangle, she's always got to make a choice. It can't be both. So it's always very monogamy centric in media, and so we're not presented, with other options, and so we're all enculturated that way. So that can make it difficult for us to explore other formats of relationships, because I think that many years ago, if I had a partner that presented to me like, hey, I like you, I don't think I want to move in with you, but like, here are the things I do enjoy doing with you.
Hmm.
What do you think? I would have been insulted to my core. I would have been like, well, you clearly don't love me. Because if you
You don't want
did,
to do the same house step.
yeah. It. I
You
thought
can't
that
do
that
this
was
other
the
step.
representation of love and commitment.
You can't do this other step until we've done the same house step.
Yeah, you got to do the steps in order. Don't you know that life is all things organized? It's pure, just organized, and that's just how we have to do it. And it's hard. It's really hard to unpack that, and I can attest, personally, that it's hard. And you don't have to unpack it. I want to make that clear that if you don't want to do this work, that's
Yeah.
totally okay too. But this is for the people who are drawn to question this.
Yeah, I get you.
And yeah,
I think I do anyway.
yeah, no, I think you do. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, for me, it's kind of I've found that the in quotes standard relationship, it's fine, and the same with in quotes standard, or your historical, your classic gender roles. They're fine that they
yeah,
exist. They work for some people. They
yeah.
don't work for everyone, and they need to not be forced on those people they don't work for.
Yeah. I'd be surprised if it actually, I'll say it, I guess. I'll be surprised if that actually works for anyone, because usually if it works for someone, it's because they haven't done anything else, or they've never considered anything else.
Hmm.
Like, I didn't know, I never would have said, I wouldn't say about myself, 5 years ago, that it wasn't working for me.
Yeah.
Monogamy was working for me. Like, my partner was fantastic. We were very happy. But once we opened up, I was like, holy shit, there's more than one kind of sandwich out here. Like, there is a lot going on. And I can't go back. Now I can't go back, because I was happy, and now I'm very happy, knowing that I am completely autonomous, and I don't feel bound by those narratives anymore. I feel more endless, vast opportunities, and a kind of autonomy that reflects how I see myself.
Hmm.
Um, so so yeah, I wasn't looking for it. Like, I didn't need it. Um, but it just ended up being
Well,
something that I loved. And I think one of the hugest things, the biggest things that I benefited from, that I did not expect in non-monogamy, was when my partner, who I signed a piece of paper with saying that I would feel romantic towards him forever until I die, that
mm-hmm.
guy, he started dating a girl. Actually, yesterday was their 3-year anniversary. They started dating 3 years ago, when we opened up, 3.5 years ago, and it devastated me. My God, it devastated me. And this is what I was talking about. Like, if you go into non-monogamy, you got to keep your values at the front of your head, because these emotions are going to pop up, and you've got to stay focused on your value system and work on the reactions that you're having inside of you, as partner being the enemy. But anyway, he's dating this girl who she's super cute, and she's like shorter than me, thinner than me, has long hair, dyes it cute colors, doesn't mind talking about penises and sex in public, doesn't mind talking about fucking in public. Like, she wears cute dresses, she dresses up, and she's everything I thought I was supposed to be as a woman. And I've
Hmm.
always thought that, and I would not have had to deal with that if it weren't for non-monogamy. And but we'll call it jealousy, but really
Mm-hmm.
it was my insecurities manifested in her body, um, forced me to contend with, am I okay? Am I okay?
Hmm.
And for a long time, really, really, really struggled. But got therapy, talked to my partner, talked to his partner. She talked a lot too, which is complicated there, even of itself. But ultimately, one day it dawned on me, holy shit, I don't want to be her. I like me. Like, I don't want to be her because someone told me that that's what a woman is supposed to be. And I don't want to be. Like, that's just not where I'm going. And if around the world are like, yeah, pass, your hair's too short. Yeah, pass, you're too fat. Yeah, pass, you're too loud, you talk too much, you're too confident, you're too violent. Like I'm tired of trying to be her. Like, this isn't really about her. This is about me. And so that experience helped me fall in love with myself. And that is not a thing that I've ever been able to experience ever until that day. And now I am my favorite companion. Like, I love what I'm doing with my life. I honor the struggles that I have. I think that people think about me or what they want me to be, because I've tried that. I've already tried that. And I don't have any interest in trying to allure people who don't already like me. And so that was something I was able to deal with through non-monogamy. I can't imagine how it would have happened otherwise.
So you kind of had to confront these things in order to be okay enough with yourself to carry on with this non-monogamous relationship.
Exactly.
Okay. It's a it's a very interesting sort of way of approaching things, but I think it's something a lot of people could probably benefit from, just at the least considering.
Yeah.
Just actually, are you doing this because it's what you want to do, or are you doing this because it's what you feel you have to?
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. It takes a lot of emotional work. Like, before we did this, I read 3 books on the topic of non-monogamy because I wanted to be prepared. I'm like, there's people who have been doing this their entire life and they wrote a book. So I am not about to go in here and try to recreate the wheel and create more problems for myself. And I was prepared. Like, I knew shit was probably going to go down. Like, as soon as he started sleeping with someone else, I was like, much insecurity I have. This is going to be fun. Like, I literally was like that. I'm like, this is going to cause me to grow. Like that. And yeah, there you go. And it did. And it was incredibly painful for me. It's not painful for everyone, but it was for me. It's not gone away. It is still there. I still experience insecurity and discomfort around that relationship. But I also don't like going to the dentist. But I do that because it's important for me and my health. And that's just kind of how I see this too. Like, it's just...
Yeah, I think I get you.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a question in the comment.
There is.
Critical Cripple was asking how I feel about so many people missing out on this. I don't care. Not my problem. But I mean, I have the privilege of being able to talk on this platform about it. So maybe I do feel something about it, because clearly I'm trying to convince you all of at least something. I'm trying to convince you at least that it's a legitimate choice, that at least it's something that can cause good things. It's something that can be done ethically, and it's not gross. And so I guess I care, and I don't. Like, I don't have any interest in trying to,
Well, you're putting the information out there, and people can choose to try the path that you've taken or not.
Exactly that.
It might be the right thing for them, and they need...
Right.
Once they've seen it, they can consider that themselves.
Yeah, and at the very least, I would like to destigmatize it. And I say that as someone who thought it was ew, like 4 years ago. I thought it was really gross. It like made me feel gross, like,
yep.
Because like that host of that podcast, Secular Sexuality with Dr. Dale Ray, like when he had me on his show, I had listened to a few episodes before that, and he constantly is bringing up, oh, I'm poly, I'm poly, I'm poly. And I was like, ew, this old man is talking about being poly. And I tease him about that all the time. I was like, I thought you were a dirty old man. And he's like, yeah, I am. And he's proud of it. But I remember what it felt like to learn about ethical non-monogamy and just feel something very gross, like whether it was projected at the actual person who's talking about it, just kind of being like, eh, or just at the concept entirely, just feeling very uncomfortable with it. And that's okay. I think that's normal. Like if people are feeling that way, that's normal.
Aunt Jer wants to know if you've listened to the Multi-Amory podcast.
I have, yeah. I actually met the hosts. They came to a PolyCon, which is a conference on polyamory that we had in Minnesota last summer. They came and they talked about a really cool tool that they talk about on their show called Radar, which is basically just the practice of touching base with your partner once a month to discuss relational issues during a dedicated period of time. So yeah, I've met them. I'm going to try to see if they'll get me on their show. I would like to be on their show. But yeah, they're excellent people. They're an excellent source of information.
Interesting. I'll have to check that out myself at some point.
Yeah.
All right. We've just gone past the hour. Would you like to do a little after show with the peeps?
I'm game. Yeah, I'm game if people want to.
All right. Let me just set a thing up. So if you like say words for a sec while I make StreamYards happen.
Words. In West Philadelphia, born and raised. I played on the playground pretty much every day. Something, basketball.
Oh, did you hear about that? What am I talking about right now? Oh, YouTube's just notified me that I'm live.
Oh, okay.
I hadn't realised. Right. Did you hear about that somebody got suspended from their school or something because they had the Fresh Prince music as their ringtone and they thought that it said shooting some people outside of the school?
Oh my god. Shooting some people.
Have you literally never heard the Fresh Prince?
Literally everyone
before?
in the 90s can sing that song verbatim. Come on. Jesus.
Right.
Ooh.
I have created a StreamYards. Possibly.
Do I need to go back to Twitter?
No, I'm going to just put it in the chat. Okay. And then people can join if they want to.
People.
Or shall I put it in somewhere? Oh, I haven't done an after show for ages. I can't remember how I do it anymore.
Well, I just imagine it's a lot like this.
Well, I think it's all cool people in the chat. So I'll just put the link in the chat.
Okay.
We'll be fine.
We'll be just fine.
And if we're not fine, then we'll learn from the experience.
We'll deal with it. Yeah, that's the beautiful thing that I tell people recovering from religion. I'm like, we can make mistakes. We can make mistakes, and we can be there to clean them up.
All right, so here's what we'll do. I'm going to put this link into the chat. Hopefully it's the right link. If not, then I've screwed I've screwed the pooch quite terribly. So, let's make YouTube do my outro, shall we?
Okay.
Outro.